Hey there, and welcome back to the podcast. If you were with me when I used to podcast before, you probably already know I've been on hiatus for a while, and that was simply because I didn't know what I wanted to do with the podcast going forward, and I took my time. And today, after some recent contemplation, I suddenly feel inspired to share again, and I want to share in a more free-form way, a way that feels really filled with ease for me and allows me to express myself, because I do have a lot of things I want to say, and there's so many different ways to say them nowadays. And what I found is finding the right fit for me, finding what feels right now is a really important aspect of expression. So I've been trying a lot of different things, and this just feels right now to just to sit here, record just on audio for now, and to share. And so again, if you're returning to the podcast, welcome back. If you're brand new, thank you so much for being here. I'm happy you've discovered this form of me expressing so many of the things that I really would like to say, things that are on my heart, on my chest that I would really like to say. So thank you so much for being here. The name that was given to me at birth in this lifetime is Timothy. In casual conversations like this, I prefer to go by my nickname, which is Beau. So if you see Beau in any of my materials, that's my nickname. And I like playing with that nickname. So jumping into today's topic, this is something I've been, again, contemplating a lot. And it has to do with all of the experiences of manifestation in my life, and then seeing all of the materials, all of the videos, just everything that's out there right now that has to do with manifestation. And I think a lot of it can be really good, really helpful. And then I've been reflecting on how manifestations actually showed up in my life, and the things I've learned through my own experiences of manifesting. And so again, the topic of me sharing today is manifestation even real? Question mark. Because there's just so many things out there, and I feel it's easy to get lost in all of the different tips, all of the different tricks. And then if things aren't manifesting the way that maybe our personality or our mind would hope, I feel it's easy to get discouraged. And so, again, this is my experience after, I don't even know how long I've been aware of manifestation at this point. I want to say probably at least somewhere between like 5 to 7 years. I mean, I've been a dreamer my whole life. Manifestation specifically, I want to say, is probably been aware of that in the range of anywhere from 5 to 7 years. And so I've seen a lot, I've experienced a lot, and what I really want to lean in on today is more so my experience, my personal experience with manifestation, like in the physical 3D world, and what I've learned from that. And so to segue, I looked up the definition of manifestation or manifesting or to manifest in the dictionary, the online dictionary. And the definition I found was to be visible or apparent, basically in plain sight for the eye or the mind. So something that is in plain sight. And that actually ties in beautifully to a teaching that I know from Bashar. That's Bashar. And Bashar says that the definition of manifestation is to make something visible. And if you've studied metaphysics at all, you probably know about the infinite field of possibilities, that there's simultaneous realities. It's just a matter of which version of reality are we a match for, which one are we focused on, which one are we experiencing, because there's, when you learn about the quantum field and the endless variables of reality, it's just a matter of which one are we focused on? Which one are we currently a match for based on our beliefs and the level of resistance? These are advanced metaphysics and manifesting terms, so if you're not too familiar with them yet, don't worry. Again, there's so much out there, and as I continue to go on here, I'll probably get more in depth about things like the quantum. As I keep recording episodes, I'll probably get more into things about the quantum field and the endless variables of reality and all that. But again, to get to the point, Bashar talks about like manifestation means to make one potential of reality visible. So it's visible to the eye, visible to the mind, which again matches the definition that I found in, the online dictionary. And so basically the gist of it is that it can be experienced. It can be experienced in 3D physical reality. And so the way I translate that is that it goes from a desire, like a felt desire or an imagined experience, to a physical experience, something that can be seen with the eye, the physical eye, and the physical mind, and therefore experienced, in this 3D reality. And I definitely have had a lot of those experiences. And the question that I pose, is manifestation even real? Like, that's a question for you to answer. Like, I can't answer that question for you. For me, I know the answer, and it's yes based on my experiences in life thus far. I can clearly see, and that's what I'm going to elaborate on and explain, if you will, or describe. I'm going to share some of my experiences in this recording, and then, you can determine for yourself, because, only you can ever decide, because you're having your own human 3D experience, if you will. And the reason the answer is yes for me, because looking back, recently I've done a good amount of reflecting, and looking back, I can clearly see that I had desires that were internal desires, and in time, they would manifest. And I can see this looking back as early as, really my whole life. I wanted to be in gymnastics when I was a really young kid. One day, one of my neighbors came home and they had learned gymnastics at school. I was homeschooled and they went to public school, and they came home one day, and this was like a time when all the neighbor kids would just like play in each other's yards, and they came home and they were doing like these cartwheels, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. And I wanted to be in gymnastics after that. And then I did start going to gymnastics classes probably not too long after that, and did it until I was like 20 or maybe even close to 21. And I loved it. So I had that desire and it manifested. Like, I was a kid, probably like 8, when I wanted to do that. And the circumstances in my life that were necessary for me to do that, the classes, those things were arranged through my parents, and it was all based on a desire I had. Later in life, I wanted to be married. Like, I wanted to be married, and I'm same-sex oriented, so I wanted to be married to a man. And I met someone, rather early on, probably around the age of, just like, I want to say like 22. And eventually we were married, and I got the experience of being married for about 5 years, I want to say. And, I had that experience. It wasn't the type of relationship that was meant to last forever. And still, I got to have an experience of being married. And, it did last for 5 years. So I have an idea of what that's like after having lived it. From there, I wanted to, since I was a teenager, it was hard for me to admit this when I was a teenager. And at that time, I wanted to study acting. I wanted to see what it was like to live in Los Angeles and Hollywood. I had a lot of internal resistance to that, a lot of fears about that. And so I didn't really let myself play into it for a long time. It was actually at the end of my marriage that I was encouraged to finally, both by my heart and by, my ex-husband, to go finally pursue that, because it was a dream that I had kept putting off to at least see what it was like. And so that did manifest around the age of 30. And I really got to see what that was like, living in Hollywood, living in Los Angeles, and studying acting. That was a long-held desire, and eventually it did come to fruition. And so I can clearly see a pattern of a desire and then manifest experience. And the timetable is variable. I'll probably get a little bit more into why I feel the timetable can vary, because these days I feel like there is so much instant gratification in our world. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that, some things can happen very instantly and other things seem to take time. And I feel like maybe, even myself, I feel like a lot of people these days can struggle and have trouble when certain things take time to manifest. So I'll get a little bit more into that shortly here, most likely. One of the coolest experiences of manifestation, they're all wonderful, because again, it goes from desire to being physically lived out, physically experienced. So that's the link. It starts internally and then it expresses externally. That's the link. And I reflect on this because it's just so cool, because at this point I had been learning a lot about manifestation, about the visualization techniques, about how to visualize and to feel it ahead of time. And I was at a point where it was actually, this is a number of years back, not too many years back, but it was when, the world was still kind of shut down in a lot of ways. And I was just struggling with, just loneliness and kind of a feeling of lacklusterness where I was in California at the time. And I had friends that were in Colorado. They had told me many wonderful things. I felt like it would be nice to be closer to these friends, again, when so many things in the world were still kind of shut down. And so I decided that I wanted to see what it would be like to live in Colorado. I had actually remembered the first time I drove to Los Angeles, I drove through Colorado, and it was so beautiful, just like the mountains and the rivers and the nature. Of all the states that I drove through, Colorado really stuck out to me. And so during this time when I was feeling lonely and wanted to be closer to some of my good friends at the time, I decided hey, I want to see what it's like to live in Colorado. And I also just want to have my own space. I hadn't really experienced that before, having my own space, because I'd always lived with roommates or a romantic partner. So I never had the experience of having my own space. So I said, hey, I want to see what that's like too. Quick side note here. When I listened back to this episode while I was editing it, I noticed that in this story, I keep saying blue shutters. And what I meant to say was blue siding, which is a big difference. I don't know why I think of certain siding as shutters, but it's actually blue siding. So I feel that's important because it'll help this story make a lot more sense, and wanted to point that out before I proceed. Okay, now back to the regular transmission. And I remember visualizing. I got very specific. I said, if I'm going to have my own space, I want off-street parking. If you live in LA, if you've ever lived in LA, it's a big thing to have off-street parking, like garage parking or indoor parking, just something like that. By indoor, I mean it's it's in some kind of big garage or something. So I remember naming a lot of the things that I wanted to experience in an apartment or a dwelling space in Colorado. And the list went something like, I want off-street parking, protective from the weather because I knew it would snow in Colorado. So I wanted, like protective off-street parking. I wanted a lot of light. I wanted a lot of like natural light to flow into the space, especially the kitchen, because I had experienced kitchens where there wasn't a lot of natural light and I didn't like that. So I said, I want a lot of natural light, again, including the kitchen space. I really like the idea of wood furnishings throughout the apartment. And I also wanted to feel like a home. Like I kept going back and forth between, I would love to be in a home. At the time, an apartment felt more realistic, if you will. And I felt like this tug of war. So I just decided to picture it how I would want it. I pictured a house with blue shutters. I think that would take me back to the first house I remember living in as a kid that actually had blue shutters. So I think it was a form of nostalgia. And I like the color blue anyway. So I decided I'm going to imagine a home that has blue shutters. It feels like a home. I have my own entrance because it's my home, private entrance, if you will, because it's my home. And I wanted an in-unit laundry and washer and dryer, because why not? It's just so convenient to have that. And I mean, I'm trying to think if there was anything else. Those were the big things, though. I had named those things. I wanted something on the ground because I like being close to the earth. And so I also wanted to have pine trees. That's a big detail. I wanted to be near pine trees because I love pine trees. So I actually imagined like this home that had blue shutters and there were pine trees. Again, a lot of indoor light, the off-street parking, the washer and dryer, the wood furnishings. These were all things that I named. And I visualized a number of these details to the best that I could. I remember specifically picturing the home with the blue shutters and the pine trees. That was something I really practiced visualizing. And so I wasn't ready to move right at that time because it was around the holidays during that year. And so, it was the whole holiday stretch in front of me. And so I went through that. Actually, let me backtrack. I'm trying to remember. I can't quite remember if I visualized before the holidays or after the holidays. I know I visualized. And then after the holidays, I started to get very intent about this is something I really want to do. So eventually I made the call. I said, I'm going to do this. And those friends in Colorado said, hey, you can stay with us while you come here and look for your own space. And so I had, a space to land initially in Colorado. And it was so fun when I got there, after I settled and unpacked my car, because, I'd made the drive with a car full from Los Angeles to the Denver area in Colorado. And after I unpacked my car, that took a day or two just to get settled there. I went online and I went to this certain apartment's website, just one of the major apartment listing sites. And I was scrolling through, the local area, and I'll never forget, I saw this picture of this big apartment building. I think it was about 3 stories. In some aspects of the apartment building, I think there were 3 levels. And so, it was kind of tall, but they have blue shutters. And there were pine trees next to the the building. There was more than one building, but these buildings were designed to look like a home. They had blue shutters and the pine trees. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And it looked very scenic. It looked very pretty. So of course, after the visualization I had done, I was like, I'm going to click on this picture. And I did. And it had all the other things. When I looked at it more closely, it had the off-street parking. It had in the pictures, I could see the wood furnishings. I could see indoor light. Of course, there were ground level apartments. It had in-unit washer and dryer. All the things, I don't know if I already said the parking, but it had the off-street covered parking. It had all the things I named and the things I had pictured previously. And I was just like, oh my gosh. Like, oh my gosh. This literally has gone to something I didn't even know if anything like this existed. A couple months before, because it wasn't that long in this case. I had done the visualizing, I think maybe just a couple months before, when I was getting ready, when I was really thinking about the move with a high degree of intention. I was like, I literally pictured something like this, and they were apartments, but it felt more like a home because it had a private outdoor entrance. And so it's like, oh my gosh, it's an apartment that feels like a home because of the private outdoor entrance, because of the blue shutters. I was like, oh my gosh. And I was just like, holy cow, this is so cool, because that's probably the thing that I really spent, at that point in my life, that's the thing that I spent the most time visualizing ahead of time to then manifesting, becoming visible to my eye and to my mind. And the thing I want to point out is that I didn't know how I was going to get to that result, if you will. I had no clue. I put it into the field, the quantum field, if you will, with my imagination. I co-created with existence, with life, with the universe. I said, hey, here's what I'm interested in. And I visualized it. And it felt approachable. That's something I really want to hone in on in this moment, is that it felt approachable, this space I was visualizing. And so I feel that's a big reason why I was led to it. It's because I really felt like it was possible. In the world of manifesting and metaphysics, you probably hear that if you don't believe, it's like, how can you experience it if you don't really believe it can happen? I do really feel there's truth to that, and I might touch on that a little bit more in a few moments here. And again, for this example, I want to say I really believe this could happen. I didn't know how, I didn't know when. I just was like, hey, existence, hey, universe, this is what I'm interested in. And then I was led to it, and I just took care of the details that I could take care of, which was getting myself from Los Angeles to Colorado. And then once I was there, it was really easy. Like, literally, I think it might have even been the first apartment listing site that I looked at. I remember it did not take that long. Like, I felt like it took like 10 minutes of looking online before I saw this picture. I was just like, oh my gosh. And so of course I went for a tour, and I really enjoyed the tour, and everything just worked out. I got to have the experience of living in that space, of having my own space for a time. And when I look back, I'm just like, well, this really aligns with so many of the things I've heard about manifesting, about visualizing, letting go, getting clear on the preference of what I'd like to experience, and then letting go, because I really did let go. I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know what I was going to find when I got to Colorado. So there was a lot of faith, a lot of courage, a lot of trust. And I got pretty much exactly what I what I asked for. And in some ways it was even better. I remember thinking it was, because like the wood furnishings were so cool. And so in some ways it felt even better than what I had listed in my mind beforehand. So that's why for me, the answer is yes, manifesting is real. And it's because of what I've experienced, because of what I've learned about manifesting, what I've learned about metaphysics, and then also what I have physically experienced in my life. So my answer is yes. My answer is yes. Quickly, I would like to touch on some frustrations that may occur with manifesting, because I feel there's different levels of manifestation. Like, even in the past year, there were a number of things in my life that, may feel like small details because they were things like clothing items that I was really interested in. And I would just notice how when I first noticed a certain clothing item that I would want, my intuition would say, okay, good, you know what you're interested in, but don't buy it yet. And then sometimes just a couple weeks later, I would run into that same clothing item, but it would be on clearance for like $6. It was something that I did genuinely want and need because I needed some new clothing and some new sizes for the summer because, I have actually put on some weight in recent years. So I had grown out of other clothes. And so I genuinely needed something that fitted me better at this point in my life. And I knew the style I was interested in. And yeah, I noticed it work like that several times where I was like, I know what I'm interested in. I would see it once, but my intuition would say not yet. And then, yeah, I would run into it later. And one time it was a pair of pajama pants. This was actually last winter. There was a pair of pajama pants that I wanted. And the first time I saw it, my intuition was like, great, you know what you want. Don't buy it yet. And then literally, a few weeks later, I would get this just nudge to go. I got this nudge to go to Goodwill. And I found the exact pair of pajama pants that I wanted that I had previously seen somewhere else for like $25. But now I was at Goodwill. The day I was led to Goodwill, I didn't really know why. I just knew I was supposed to go there. And I found the same pair of pants, like the exact same design. And on this day at Goodwill, they were doing this thing called like $1 Sundays, where a certain colored tag in the store, for instance, like, things that were tagged with a pink tag were like $1 on Sundays. They rotate the colors, but whatever the color there was that day, it was actually on the pair of pajama pants. And so I got that pair of like, they're kind of like fleece checkered, black and gray checkered pajama pants for $1. And I had seen it first a few weeks prior for like 25. My intuition was like, not yet. And so that to me is my soul, my higher self, the universe, all that is playing with me, being like, oh, okay, great. Something you're interested in. Now watch how it can be fun. Watch how it can be easy. Watch how it can take you by surprise. Because $1, like, that is so cool. That is so freaking cool. Back to the point I wanted to make is that I've noticed that with things that feel approachable, they really can feel easy and fun and out of the blue. They can just happen in those surprising, synchronistic ways, like this intuitive nudge, go to Goodwill, and I don't know why, and then I'm surprised. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember wanting that, and now it's here for $1. When it comes to, and this is the point I keep getting to, is that when it comes to bigger things that feel really big in life, like maybe that childhood dream of like the most amazing life possible. And I have had a dream like that since I was a kid. Those dreams, I feel like they can just have so much resistance. And this is something that Abraham Hicks gets into a lot, which I really like. They talk a lot about resistance and how resistance holds out physical experiences from manifesting. They talk about it being in the vortex, and that, certain things can only manifest physically or outwardly when, basically there's not a whole lot of resistance to them. And I really feel at this point in my life that is true, because the dreams that have felt like bigger than life to me, the things I've wanted to experience forever, I have had so much resistance to them, like so much resistance. And the reason I bring this up is because, again, I feel it's easy to get discouraged when certain experiences have not manifested yet. And you might be thinking, or in a lot of cases, I'm thinking like, oh, I'm so interested in that. Like, why hasn't it happened yet? Like, I know I'm interested in it. I know I would love to have that experience. Why has it not happened? Why does it feel like it's not happening? And the answer I found for me is, for one, it's just obviously not time yet, because if it were time, it would be happening. But a big reason I feel it may not be time yet is because of resistance. Like, I feel that the universe, creation, life itself wants us to be able to receive something and really receive it and allow it to land in our lives to where we can just enjoy it and make the most of it. And if there's a lot of resistance, or if, one of the ways that resistance can show up, I feel, is what we refer to as self-sabotage, where something comes in, and if we're not ready for it, like somehow if we're not ready, somehow we may just kind of act in a way where it can't really stay, or we can't really enjoy it. Those are just the examples that are coming to mind. So I feel this whole thing with resistance is valid just because of what I've seen in my own life. I'll give one other example because I feel real life examples help. So, for instance, this past year, I finally let myself have a red mohawk, a fully dyed mohawk, and publicly so. Like, I had dyed it a little bit. I remember I had bleached it when I was like, I think in my late 20s. But I really, at that time I had fears about people seeing me because I thought they would judge me for having this very, out of the ordinary haircut. So back then I would kind of like hide it under beanies and stuff like that. So that's resistance right there. That's fear. And for the past number of years, I have had a visible mohawk, but it was just my natural color of brown hair. And I let myself be seen. I got comfortable being seen. I got over my fear to a large degree of being judged and all those things. And I let myself be seen with, my natural brown hair mohawk. And I still had this desire deep within where I wanted to have like, a fully dyed and colored mohawk. But again, there was resistance. There was fears of like, will people judge me? What will they think? All of those things. And I just finally decided one day, like, I just need to be courageous and get over that. And I had to walk through a lot of resistance with physical steps, like moving through the fear by taking physical steps. This is just what worked for me. I'm not telling anyone else what they should ever do in their life. This is just what I actually did and how it worked for me in this specific instance. So I had to move through those physical fears, those internalized fears, if you will, and take physical steps. And I just decided, like, I'm done playing small. I'm done being scared, and I'm just gonna finally do this. Like, I did also have a peace about it. Like, I felt like I was finally ready for it. And so I was like, okay, let me just do it and see what happens. And sure enough, none of the fears came true. Like, I had these abandonment fears. Like, I had these fears that people close to me would be like, oh my gosh, like, you're weird, like, why do you have hair like that? So a lot of these fears I probably absorbed as a young person. And, so there was abandonment fears, there was fears of judgment. And none of those actually happened. Like, when I went and dyed my hair, like, the people I had been afraid of for so long abandoning me did not abandon me. There were no harsh remarks. And a lot of people, that know of me online were very like celebratory, like, hey, you look really happy in that hair color. It looks really great. It's so cool. So in the online world, I had a lot of positive reinforcement. And again, the reason I'm sharing this story is because I just had so much resistance to that. Like, I put that off again since I was like a teenager because I thought that kind of hair was cool as a teenager, and it always stuck with me. If you know Mohawk people tend to be like Mohawk lovers for life. And so it's just kind of something that tends to stick, and that was the case for me. I just love that kind of hair so much. But again, I had this fear of expressing myself since I was a teen, and It was just all the resistance that kept it out, like all of that resistance that kept it out. And so again, I'm sharing this because this is just the way I feel things work, that resistance keeps physical experiences from happening, whether it's the experiences coming to me or to us, or sometimes taking a certain set of actions to really allow an experience to unfold. So in this case, I had to take certain steps before I would physically see, the red mohawk in the mirror. Again, manifest is to be visible to the eye and to the mind. So in this case, I did actually have to take steps to to dye my hair, and that's how that manifested. Other times, it's like a combination of certain actions and just things surprising, things that can surprise us. So for instance, the apartment building, that surprised me. I didn't know it was actually going to happen. It did happen. The pajama pants for $1, that surprised me. the pair of cargo shorts for $6, like those were fun things that just kind of like just showed up one day. I was no longer looking for them. I had let those desires go. And then they just kind of found me one day, and they found me at like this incredible bargain. And so I still, to further this point, I still have desires that feel really big, that haven't manifested yet, that have things to do with career avenues and how I want to express myself, and the things that I want to, experience, the things that I want to bring to the world, the things that I want to share with the world, the sides of myself that I want to express to the world. Because, I'm, of the many things, I'm also a performer, and that manifested a little bit. Well, I was in LA because I got to perform in improv shows, and I got to perform in acting classes, and that was really fulfilling and nourishing and satisfying. And there's a lot more I want to do with that, and that has not manifested yet. And in my experience, I feel that has a big part to do with, like, I'm still being prepared, I'm still being made ready, and I'm still releasing a lot of resistance because, they're dreams that feel big to me, based on the childhood that I had, and the beliefs I picked up along the way. I'm not blaming anybody. It's just that in certain parts of the world, like, thinking big is just maybe seen as unreasonable, just like thinking super big is unreasonable. And so to break out of that thinking, to break out of that resistance, I feel like can take time. Like, I just see how on certain subjects in my life that I keep releasing layers of resistance, like month by month by month. It's really day by day, but, it adds up to month by month. And over the course of a year, I've released a lot of resistance. I mean, it took many years. Again, it took many years for me to release enough resistance to finally dye my hair red, my mohawk red. A lot of people might think, like, that's not a big deal, like just dyeing your hair red, like, who cares? Well, it was a big deal to me because of the beliefs that I had picked up along the way. I had picked up a lot of restricting beliefs around that. And so therefore, I've picked up a lot of restricted beliefs around a lot of things, including these dreams that feel so big. And so I know I'm continuing to release resistance. I know that I'm continuing to be prepared. And I know that that's a process. Like, I'm very clear based on the life that I've lived that it's a process to release resistance. It's a process to let go of all of those restricting beliefs. And so, again, if there's something in your life where you feel like, oh, I've been clear on this for so long and I still want to have this experience, and it feels out of reach, from my life to yours, I'm just saying what I've determined for me is that I feel like it comes down to the resistance, and that, it can take time to be made ready. It can take time to be prepared. It can take time to let go of all the resistance that is in between an internal desire and a physical experience. And, and sometimes things do manifest, but they manifest in different ways. So it's not quite like how I thought it would be. And so that's a whole nother element too, is of course being open to things manifesting slightly differently or even better, to where it's like it still allows the feeling of joy to be lived and expressed, because a lot of these desires have to do with, having a joyous life or having an adventurous life or having an expressive life. So I do feel there's also the element of being open to things manifesting differently. However, the feeling of fulfillment or the feeling of nourishment or the feeling of excitement is the same. However, the details of the experience may vary at times. I do feel that that's really a part of the conversation as well. And so that's what I wanted to, that's clearly what wanted to be expressed through me today in terms of this transmission, in terms of this expression. Because again, these are my experiences with manifesting. That's why I've come to the answer that I've come to in my life. And I'm still being patient in terms of some of these things that feel so big. I really confidently feel that I'm being prepared, that I'm being made ready. And so that's where I'm at. And I hope that something in this transmission has helped you. I hope that at least part of it has encouraged you, or maybe helped a few things just maybe make a little bit more sense. So thank you so much for taking the time to listen and to allow me to share. At this point, these recordings feel like they will be very like off the cuff, like very stream of consciousness, if you will. And that's just the way I feel good about expressing things right now. So if you're here, thank you for being here. If you feel like this might help someone else, please feel free to share. Yeah, the whole point is just, I don't want to keep these things to myself, because so many things make so much more sense to me at this point in my life. And I feel like the big thing in my life right now is patience, because I've seen so many of these other things manifest, and I noticed the patterns. I noticed the patterns that were at play in allowing these things to manifest. And now, of course, I'm excited about the things that feel big. And of course, I still appreciate the things that also feel like maybe, just everyday normal things, so to say. They're still magical to me. It's still magical when things I've just thought about show up and basically just knock on my doorstep and just like, I'm here. Those things are still cool, and they impress me and they delight me and they feel like magic every time. Even just something as simple as like thinking about an ice cream I'd like to have, and then like a version of ice cream I'd like to have, and then a few days later that very ice cream is gifted to me. Like, those things still happen, and I love those things. They always surprise me. They always feel like a magical gift from life, from creation, from the universe. So I still love those things. I still appreciate those things. And I'm just taking all the things I've learned and applying them to the things that feel bigger, because, of course I want to live out those bigger experiences. They feel fun. They feel amazing. And so I'm staying tuned, and I'm learning how to be patient. I'm learning how to let things unfold naturally. Yeah, that's where I'm at. So again, I hope this may have been of service to you. Thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, may you be well, and may you continue to experience the many, many wonderful blessings of life.